Hello, my friends. It's Executive Coach Ed DeCosta with another episode of my Get Edified video blog. Today, we're going to deal with a serious subject in a somewhat playful way. In fact, the title of this week's vlog is Playing with Dolls. Now, what's the serious subject? The serious subject is self-limiting beliefs. That little voice in our heads that tells you, tells me, that you can't, that you're not good enough, that you're not worthy, that other people are better than you, that you didn't grow up with much, and maybe you weren't that bright. Maybe you were not as smart as your sister was, or not as quick on the uptake as your brother was. Quite often, the birth of them is benevolent. They're not intended to harm us, but one example, and it doesn't apply to everyone, of course, but think about it. When you're 2 or 3 years old, you don't remember what happened to you when you were 2 or 3 years old, unless you remember it because someone else has told you. But isn't it common for people to say to a young toddler to be leery of strangers? Don't talk to strangers. Again, I'm not saying this applies to everyone. But what happens is at that age, what gets planted in our psyche, in our subconscious mind, is that strangers are a source of danger, of fear, of risk. And that later in life, you think about it, you've seen the book of lists of the things people fear the most? What is feared more than snakes? What is feared more than spiders? What is feared more than death? Public speaking. Why? And I'm not saying there's a causal effect between someone telling you when you were a little kid not to talk to strangers and fear of public speaking, but they are related. They are absolutely related. And this is just a simple example of something that might have been told to you for your own protection, but later grows into something stronger and stronger. And it is absolutely the case that people have self-limiting beliefs that are not true. They have inner critics that remind them of past failures to prevent them from the pain of future failure. And so what is the single easiest way to guarantee that you don't fail? It's for you not to try. Don't do it and you won't fail. I know it's perverse, but it's logical. And this is what this inner critic does. And quite often this inner critic can grow so loud and can be so dominant that it becomes malevolent, not benevolent anymore, intended to help, but intended to harm. And in some cases, they're called gremlins or something else. A long time ago, I went through an exercise with a coach where I had to articulate what my inner critic said to me. And I had to eventually personify, like really reflect, close your eyes and think about the face of your gremlin. Does it, he, she, it have a face, a particular voice? Now, for some people, the answer is no. It's just a feeling, and that's perfectly legit. No problem. For me, it did have a face, and the more I reflected on it, it turned out to me to be the face of Robert De Niro. And I have nothing against Bobby De Niro. I love his movies. I think he's a great actor. But when I think about my gremlin, my inner critic, I think of this face. And again, as you can see, someone sent me a posable action figure of Robert De Niro. And this truly does look like the gremlin that bothered me for a long time. Long story short is you go through an exercise that I've done with people, I've done with audiences. I've done it with individuals many, many, many times, hundreds of times. I've done it with live audiences. I just did it just a few weeks ago in Florida with over 50 people in the room, and it was a phenomenal experience for me and for them. I'd never done it in a public forum before, where you essentially take your gremlin to court, and that is make the gremlin make its case against you. And what you quickly realize is that it has no case. It's just these superficial, really name calling. It's nothing more than name calling, that if you don't make the gremlin or make that inner voice justify the criticism, it can just stop you in your tracks. And that's really all it's trying to do. And once you take that gremlin to court, again, I'm kind of giving you the very, very condensed version, you realize that it's silly and it has no power over you, and you can just throw it away. And now it's a very empowering thing for me to have that little sucker sitting as a 12-inch hunk of plastic in my office. Note the difference. It's not I am a 12-inch hunk of plastic sitting in his office. It's the other way around. So anytime that I have a disappointment, have a failure, times when your gremlin typically pounces to tell you all the things that you're not, now it's a source of humor for me. I actually laugh about it. And I could go on, but I won't. But I have processed it so much. And I'm not daring it. I'm not going into the area of taunting it, but I'm telling you, he has no power over me. So much so that when I wrote my book, about my second book, I named it Release Your Superhero, intended to really say that each of us has a superhero inside. Another way of saying we have an amazing amount, even unlimited potential. And then sure enough, I got another. This one is not posable, but it is, of course, the ultimate superhero, at least in my mind, Superman or Superwoman, as your gender will indicate or dictate. So for me, having this up behind me in my office, it just reminds me of how people need to reach their potential and to keep striving to be better and better. Certainly something that I try to do on a regular basis. And that anytime that you have a negative thought, anytime you have some stinking thinking, that you just get rid of it outside of your head, put it off into some other inanimate object so that it has no more effect on you. So yes, I am a grown man playing with dolls. My name is Ed DeCosta. I hope that you found this helpful, and wherever you are, make it a great day.